Right now, there are 10,000 commercial planes in the sky. Each one carries hundreds of people. Each one is controlled by pilots in the cockpit. At least, that's what everyone on board believes. But Boeing has a patent that proves otherwise. A system that can take control of any plane from the ground, lock out the pilots, fly it anywhere, land it, without anyone in the cockpit touching a single button. They call it the Uninterruptible Autopilot, and it might have already been used. In 2003, Boeing filed a patent that would change aviation forever. The world had just witnessed 9/11. Terrorists had turned planes into weapons by taking control of cockpits. Boeing's solution seemed logical. Create a system where hijackers couldn't fly the plane no matter what they did. The patent was approved in 2006. Patent number 7,142,971. The documents describe a system more powerful than anything the public knew existed. Once activated, this autopilot cannot be turned off, not by pilots, not by anyone on the plane. The controls in the cockpit become useless. The plane flies itself to a predetermined safe airport, guided by people on the ground. The pilots can pull the yoke, push buttons, flip switches. Nothing works. They become passengers in their own cockpit. Boeing presented this as an anti-terrorism tool. If hijackers storm the cockpit, ground control activates the system. The plane lands safely. Lives are saved. Everyone goes home. But Boeing's patent revealed capabilities they didn't advertise. The system could be activated without the pilots knowing. It could disable the transponder, change the flight path, control every system on the aircraft. And here's the disturbing part. The patent never specifies who exactly has the authority to activate it. For years, this remained a piece of paper in a patent office. Boeing didn't announce which planes had the system. Airlines didn't tell passengers it existed. Pilots weren't trained on what to do if it activated. It was a ghost in the machine, waiting. Then came March 8, 2014, and Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. MH370 was a Boeing 777-200ER, state-of-the-art, multiple redundant communication systems, the kind of plane that doesn't just disappear. But that night, it did exactly that. The flight left Kuala Lumpur at 12:41 a.m., heading for Beijing, 239 people on board. For the first 40 minutes, everything was normal. The pilots checked in with air traffic control. Systems functioned perfectly. Then, as the plane crossed into Vietnamese airspace, something happened that aviation experts still can't explain. At 1:21 a.m., the transponder went dark. Not malfunction dark, switched off dark. The plane vanished from civilian radar, but military radar caught what happened next. The aircraft made a sharp turn to the left, not a gentle banking turn like pilots make. A precise, calculated turn that put it on a completely different heading. The plane flew back across Malaysia, crossed the peninsula, turned northwest, then disappeared into the night sky over the Indian Ocean. No mayday call, no distress signal, no communication from the pilots at all. Here's what makes investigators nervous. The way MH370 flew after that turn wasn't random. It followed established waypoints, invisible markers in the sky that pilots use for navigation. It flew along the border between Thai and Malaysian airspace, exploiting a gap in radar coverage. It climbed to 45,000 feet, then dropped to 23,000 feet, then leveled off at cruising altitude. These aren't the actions of a plane in distress. These are the precise maneuvers of an aircraft being flown by someone who knew exactly how to avoid detection. But the pilots? Captain Zaharieh Ahmad Shah had 18,000 flight hours. His co-pilot Farik Abdul Hamid was equally experienced. Neither had any history of mental illness, no financial problems, no terrorist connections. Their families said they were normal the day before. Yet we're supposed to believe one of them decided to kill 239 people and disappear into the ocean. While the world searched for wreckage, Boeing stayed quiet about something crucial. Their planes don't just carry transponders. They have multiple communication systems. One of them is called ACARS, Aircraft Communications Addressing and Reporting System. It sends data about the plane's health to ground stations automatically, like a heartbeat. MH370's ACARS was supposedly disabled. But here's what Boeing didn't advertise. Even when ACARS is off, the system still performs what's called a handshake with satellites. Every hour, the satellite pings the plane, asking, "Are you there?" And the plane responds, "Yes," even if it's not transmitting data. MH370 performed 7 of these handshakes after it disappeared. For 7 hours, the plane was flying somewhere, responding to satellites, but invisible to the world. The final handshake came at 8:19 a.m., then nothing. Boeing had this data. They knew the plane was alive for 7 hours. They could calculate possible flight paths from the handshake timings. But they let the world search in the wrong places for days before revealing this information. Why the delay? What else did those handshakes tell them? Investigators studying MH370's flight path noticed something disturbing. The maneuvers matched exactly what Boeing's Uninterruptible Autopilot would do if activated. The transponder shutdown, the precise turns, the altitude changes, the ability to fly for hours without pilot input. It was a textbook automated flight, but Boeing insisted no such system was installed on MH370. They said it was still in development, just a patent, not reality. Except that's not what the patent timeline shows. The patent was filed in 2003, approved in 2006. By 2014, that's 8 years of potential development and installation. 8 years of Boeing working with intelligence agencies who would love this capability. 8 years of secret modifications to aircraft during routine maintenance. There's something else Boeing didn't mention. The week before MH370 disappeared, there was a security conference in Singapore. The topic? Cyber vulnerabilities in modern aircraft. Security researchers demonstrated how aircraft systems could be accessed through entertainment systems, how flight computers weren't properly isolated from passenger-accessible networks. Now combine this with Boeing's autopilot system. If someone could access the plane's network, could they trigger the uninterruptible autopilot? Could they take control without being in the cockpit, without being on the plane at all? 20 passengers on MH370 worked for Freescale Semiconductor. This company designed chips for military radar systems, chips that could make aircraft invisible to detection. 4 of these passengers were patent holders for semiconductor technology. With their deaths, the patent rights shifted to Freescale, which was owned by Blackstone Group, which had ties to Jacob Rothschild. Conspiracy theory? Maybe. But here's what's not theory. Those passengers' expertise would be invaluable to any nation wanting to develop stealth technology or counter-stealth systems. The official search focused on the southern Indian Ocean, but amateur investigators noticed something odd. The plane's flight path, if extended northwest instead of south, leads directly to Diego Garcia. This island hosts a massive U.S. military base. It has a runway capable of landing a 777. It's in the middle of nowhere, and it's completely controlled by the military. If you wanted to land a plane secretly, Diego Garcia would be perfect. If you had Boeing's uninterruptible autopilot, you could fly it there without the pilot's cooperation, without the passengers knowing, without leaving evidence. The U.S. military denies MH370 landed there, but island residents reported unusual activity that night. Extended radar operations, increased security, a large aircraft landing in the early morning hours. These reports were quickly suppressed. Boeing's response to MH370 was carefully managed. They offered technical assistance, provided satellite data, But never once did they mention their uninterruptible autopilot patent. Never explained why their ACARS system behaved so strangely. Never addressed whether MH370 had undisclosed modifications. In the months after MH370, Boeing quietly updated their cybersecurity protocols. They added new isolation between flight systems and passenger networks. They increased encryption on critical systems. Actions of a company that discovered a vulnerability, or one that knew exactly what happened. The investigation into MH370 produced a final report in 2018. It concluded they couldn't determine what happened. But buried in the technical appendices was something interesting. The plane's flight computers showed signs of unusual programming in the weeks before disappearance. Configuration changes that weren't in maintenance logs. System updates that couldn't be traced. Who made these changes? What did they do? The report doesn't say. Boeing didn't comment. The investigation moved on. Here's what they don't want you thinking about. If Boeing's uninterruptible autopilot exists, and the patent proves it does, then every Boeing aircraft could be a remote-controlled drone. The pilots are just there for show. Someone, somewhere, has a kill switch for every commercial flight. But who controls it? The patent mentions ground stations, but never specifies which ones. Government facilities? Military bases? Corporate offices? The system was designed after September 11th, during the peak of the War on Terror, the same era that gave us warrantless wiretapping in secret prisons. Does anyone believe this technology stayed limited to anti-hijacking? Flight MH370 might have been a test or a mission. Those 20 Freescale engineers could have been targets. Their semiconductor knowledge was worth billions to the right buyer. Kill them in a normal crash, and there's an investigation. Make them disappear over the ocean, and there are only questions. But there's a darker possibility. What if MH370 wasn't taken for the passengers? What if it was carrying something that couldn't reach Beijing? Beyond those 20 Freescale engineers, MH370's cargo manifest showed anomalies. 2.5 tons of electronics equipment, lithium batteries that were flagged but cleared, and something else. Documents listed only as diplomatic pouches, weighing 200 kilograms. Diplomatic pouches can't be searched, can't be X-rayed, can't be questioned. Intelligence sources later leaked that Chinese hackers had penetrated Freescale's servers weeks before the flight. They'd stolen partial blueprints for new radar-evading technology. Technology that would make China's jets invisible to Western defense systems. The missing piece? Physical prototypes and documentation that couldn't be transmitted digitally. Hardware that was being hand-carried by those engineers. Radar operators in the region reported something strange that night. 2 unidentified aircraft appeared near MH370 just before it changed course, flying without transponders, moving at speeds only military jets could achieve. They shadowed MH370 for 12 minutes, then vanished. No country claimed these aircraft. No military admitted to operations in that airspace. The theory among aviation insiders is chilling. The uninterruptible autopilot was activated remotely. MH370 was diverted, but not to land somewhere, to fly until it ran out of fuel over the deepest part of the Indian Ocean, where recovery would be impossible, where secrets would stay buried under miles of water. Since 2014, several aircraft incidents share MH370's signatures. Germanwings 9525. The pilot supposedly locked out his co-pilot and crashed into a mountain. But what if he was locked out by the system? Egyptair 804, mysterious fire in the cockpit just as the plane entered military airspace. Lion Air 610 and Ethiopian Airlines 302, both Boeing 737 MAX crashes, blamed on software that pilots couldn't override. Boeing's uninterruptible autopilot patent includes an interesting detail. The system can be activated by unusual flight patterns or deviation from flight plan. It doesn't require human intervention. The plane can take control of itself if it decides something is wrong. But who programs what's wrong? Who updates the parameters? In 2019, a Boeing whistleblower named Curtis Eubank came forward. He claimed Boeing had been secretly installing undocumented systems on aircraft for years, systems that pilots didn't know about, systems that could override normal operations. He was found dead in his apartment 2 weeks after going public. Official cause: suicide. No note was found. Boeing has filed 12 additional patents since 2014 related to flight intervention systems, each one more sophisticated, each one more secretive about who controls them. The latest patent includes biological monitoring of pilots, heart rate, brain activity, eye movement. The system can determine if a pilot is compromised and take control automatically. But compromised by what? Fear? Stress? Or just disagreeing with where the plane is being flown? The search for MH370 continues in the wrong places. We scan the ocean floor instead of asking the real questions. Who activated the system? What was worth killing 239 people to keep secret? Why did 2 ghost planes appear that night? The technology to take control of commercial aircraft exists. Boeing patented it. Someone used it on March 8, 2014, and they'll use it again when the cargo is important enough. MH370 didn't disappear. It was disappeared. The only question left is which flight is next.